Right, let's press some buttons and do this thing. And we are recording. Oh man, here we go. Here we go. All right. I wasn't expecting it to go that smoothly. I'm glad it did. I'm going to start tonight with a bit of a disclaimer. I'm going to say some things for the next hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever, however long this stream is. I'm going to say some things that are honestly a little shocking, a little surprising, perhaps distressing, frustrating, confusing, angering. And I want you to know that I'm not doing it specifically to cause rancor. I'm not looking to wind you up. I'm not looking just to fire you up and then walk away from you. My goal, as always, my goal is to get you to think. I just want you thinking. So if you can resist that urge to a snap judgment, if you can resist that immediate, oh my God, I don't like what this guy's talking about, and walk away, if you can just hold still just for a second and consider for a minute what I'm laying out and what I'm saying, I think honestly it might do you some good. That said, if this is the first time you're hearing this, if this is the first stream of mine you're checking out, first of all, thanks for being here. I genuinely appreciate it. It's always lovely to have you. If you don't know who I am, I'm John Adamus, the writer next door, and it is my pleasure, my passion, and my business to help writers tell their stories. I've been doing it 22, going on 23 years, and I can't imagine at this point doing anything else in my life. And frankly, I don't want to do anything else in my life, so here we are. And my goal tonight is pretty simple. I am going to do battle with one of my all-time ancient foes. I am going to lay out my argument. I am going to perhaps suggest the counter-argument I face. And I'm going to offer instead a plan that you can use right now, this year, next year, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 60 books from now, 200 books from now, for the rest of your career, honestly, to help you succeed, to help you write better, to help you tell your story. Tonight I'm going up against NaNoWriMo. Tonight I am putting on the gloves, ringing the bell, and getting into it one more time. Because I am on record here in this stream, in other YouTube videos, in podcasts, on the blog, on several blogs, in fact, on my website, in interviews, in person, in workshops, in Skype calls, in Zoom calls, in all manner, in Wednesday night chats, in all manners of things. I am very much on the record as saying NaNoWriMo and I are not friends. We're not going to be friends. I'm not interested in becoming their friend. I'm not interested in joining the other side. I'm not looking to have my mind changed. I'm anti-NaNoWriMo. And I know that puts me on the outs with a great many people in the hashtag writing community, because I hear from these people every October 31st leading into November 1st. They let me know that I'm completely wrong, and they think they have found the next best thing to sliced bread. And you know what? Honestly, if it has brought them joy, if it has brought them happiness, if it has brought them contentment, good. I insist they have that. I think that's fantastic. However, if it's brought them contentment, but not exactly the creative success that they've been hoping for and dreaming for, and they notice that year after year they come back and they try to do the same thing over and over and over, hoping that this is the year that, I don't know, pigs fly and hell freezes over, and that this is the year they're going to suddenly make some kind of difference despite doing the exact same thing over and over. Well, it's to those people I'm definitely aiming, not entirely, but certainly they're part of the cone that I'm aiming through for this video. This is important because my opponent, NaNoWriMo, much like a lot of things in the hashtag writing community, we don't see eye to eye. We're not going to see eye to eye. And I'm disinterested in the persuasion to stop saying what I'm saying because it's not going to work. You would have to hand me in the minimum 6 digits worth of money before I will stop, because I got bills to pay. But frankly, we are not simpatico. We are not the same, you and I. Because I believe NaNoWriMo fundamentally does harm. Flat out. I think it makes for the kind of worst experience possible under the cloud or under the facade of being the best thing ever. I think it's fraud. I think it's a con job that everybody's bought into. And it bugs me. It genuinely bugs me that so many people come to this thing trying again and again without really questioning why they do it or what they're doing or how they're doing it. So if you'll allow me for a few moments, I want to lay out my case. I would like, Your Honor, to basically state my case as to why I think we are long overdue as writers for something better, for something different. And if you disagree, that's fine. Let me know. If you want to just go fume somewhere, that's fine too. I love you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for checking this out. But here goes. This is my case. Let's start with the technical, right? Let's just start with the straight up technical. 50,000 words. Unless we have a time machine and we can go back to the 1860s, there is no way on this planet that 50,000 words is nearly enough to call it a novel. It's just not. Now, later on, we'll talk about what it really is, but for now, it's not a novel. Likewise, writing it for 30 days, as if producing 1,667 words a day for 30 days somehow is all you need to do, or is the most important, is the top of the pyramid when it comes to writing. No, it's not. Because the distance between I'm going to write a thing and I'm going to make a book is vast, and there are many steps in between. And it seems to me that NaNoWriMo tends to sort of put everything else to the back burner in order to make sure that people just sit down and write. Now, I will go this far. I will even offer an olive branch. Yes, sitting down and writing is part of the thing. It's part of the job. It's a tough part of the job, but by no means is it the only part of the job that you need to focus on. It is the bare minimum part of the job you need to be doing, and chances are you were already doing it. It's just that now all of a sudden it's November, so I guess you wear a special hat to do it. But it's the same thing you were doing in October, the same thing you were doing in April, the same thing you were doing last January. You were sitting down to write. It doesn't get extra special just because it's November is what I'm saying. And prioritizing that while glossing over very important things like revisions, beta readers, this small, very tiny thing called editing, publishing, whether you're going to self-publish it or traditionally publish it, how you're going to get an agent if you're going to get an agent, if you want to get a pimp, how you're going to market it, how you're going to write sales copy for it, where you're going to get a cover if you're going to do it yourself. All of these steps are equally important and critical for making a book. And I know the counter argument. Well, you got to go on the forums. You got to be part of the community. And I'm going to say the same thing I say about the hashtag writing community. The hashtag writing community and the NaNoWriMo community are essentially trying to keep you inside the walled garden. They don't want you pushing the boundaries. They don't want you doing this thing. They want you staying around. They want you talking about writing. They want you occupying their website, clicking their links, checking their affiliates, going through the loop and never really expanding. Run on the wheel, hamsters. Run on the wheel. Because that's what they want. They're not interested in your success. Because if they were, flat out, 1 month might be for writing, but there's 11 other months. Where's National Editing Month? Where's National Sales Copy Month? Where's National Here's How You Write a Query Letter Month? If they were so interested in your creative success, if they were so interested beyond the first step and aggregating all the people without providing tangible, tactical, actionable material and direction and just herding them all together, spinning them up, psyching them up for some big thing, and then pushing them out the door to wander around, I should be out of business. Because if I have to go to the website, if I have to look at the forums, if I have to ask around, if I have to dig through threads, if I have to start talking to all these other people, and because the website and the org has all this material, how do I still have a job? Because if this site is the be-all, end-all, if this community is the be-all, end-all, people like me, writing coaches, editors, freelancers, we shouldn't be here. We should be phased out. We should be pushed to the side, like a mom and pop store in the face of a big giant capitalist box store. But we're not. Because that site doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about your book. It offers you this idea, this false hope idea of winning when you were writing 50,000 words. 50,000 words, just so we're clear, just so we're absolutely crystal clear, is somewhere between half and 2/3 the amount of words you're going to need for a manuscript. I don't know if they keep reminding you of that, but back in the day, they certainly didn't. And it doesn't matter what it is, what genre it is, what size book it is, whatever. 50,000 words is never going to be enough. But somehow 50,000 words is the arbitrary amount they've elected to say, oh, well, you can produce that in 30 days. Which leads us to 30 days. In what universe would somebody have the luxury and privilege to be able to sit there and produce 1,667 words a day for 30 days? Do they not have bills? Do they not have to feed a family? They don't have to worry about a roof over their head? Do they not have a day job? Do they not care about sleep? Do they not care about self-care or their mental health? Don't they have to go grocery shopping? Don't they take bathroom breaks? Don't they sit down and maybe do something other than writing? Or is this just part of that prioritizing the rise and grind hustle culture, that sort of toxic, destructive capitalism that grinds hope and ambition and art into something commodifiable and wasted? Because, yeah, 50,000 words isn't enough. And writing 1667 words a day is nice, but that's a writing sprint. Because what NaNoWriMo posits is that writing a book is a marathon, and you can win a marathon by running sprints. And they are not the same. They're never going to be the same. It's not the same. If we're talking about a marathon, we are going to talk about 26.2 miles, or for my metric friends, 42.2 kilometers. You don't prepare for that in the same way you do as a little kid running around the yard for recess or at the playground. And you don't prepare for it the same way you do running a sprint. It's not the same thing. You're going to need fundamentally different skills. You're going to need a lot of training. You're going to need the right equipment. You're going to need some preparation, some focus, some possible lifestyle changes, because I don't know if you know this, but it's really hard to run a marathon if, your diet is poor and your habits are poor. You're going to need not necessarily the best equipment ever, but certainly different equipment than you're probably used to, because you can't really show up to the starting line of a marathon in the finest Sunday church clothes you ever wore as a child, or in the most business casual outfit possible. There's not necessarily a dress code, but there's certainly material you need that helps facilitate a better effort. But that's not important right now. All you have is 30 days. 30 days to write, a novel. 50,000 words in 30 days. We're going to make it sound big, and we're going to make it sound flashy. But you can't run a marathon via sprints. What you need, and what I believe NaNoWriMo lacks, because they sell you a false bill of goods, they're big on motivation. Get everybody together, support everybody. You can do it. Yay! Big motivation. Big, giant, huge, only motivation. But what they forgot The other two parts of this to help build a foundation would be education and opportunity. Well, the education would immediately debunk them because the education says, hey, what happened to the other 30 to 40 to 50,000 words? You got half a thing here. Where's the rest? Further education would point out that you can't just sit down and knock out 1667 words a day and call it a day, because that's not how this works. It's the performance or the appearance of the performance of writing. It's the production of words, but that's not the same as the production of story. And further, the opportunity. I don't know about you, but I got bills to pay. I got stressors. I got people on the phone. I got people, with feelings, and I got activities, and I got things to deal with. And I can't always sit down and get 1667 a day. But this organization would posit that if I can't, that I'm missing something, that I'm failing, because I need to win. Because somehow winning, meaning I write an amount that isn't enough to be a novel, winning is something I should be aiming for. But here's the secret. Here's the way the sausage gets made. They're counting on you not finishing, or they're counting on you finishing so close to the end that you feel like you dragged yourself over hot coals in order to get there, because they don't give a shit about supporting you. They don't care about your method. They don't care about good technique. They don't care about format. They don't care about structure. They just want you on the wheel, hamster. They just want you turning. They just want you doing this. They want to say they have X number of people playing this little game. They're not in it for the art. They're not in it for the books. They don't care if you have a career. They don't care if you crash and burn. And that is the problem I have with them. Because it genuinely wouldn't take much at all to give a shit. It really doesn't take much at all. You just need to change a few things. And I've got a roadmap to give you tonight to change those things. That's what we're talking about tonight. This bugs me. Because for an entire month, everybody's like, oh, I got this. I got my words done. I got my words done. I got this. Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. But that is the first step of many. That is the first link in a very long chain to get you where you need to go. And shame on them for not telling you at least what the next link in the chain should be. It needs to be better. You, the creative, deserve better. Because to make the transition from, well, I do nano to I'm going to go publish some books, there's a very large gap. And shame on them for only making it bigger by always telling you, well, 50,000 words is plenty. You worked really hard to get those 50,000 words. I'm sure you did, but you're not done. You wouldn't run half a marathon and then say you won the marathon, would you? So many things about this need to change. So many things about this need to be examined. Your goal shouldn't just be to hit an arbitrary word count. Those are important, and you should be proud of them. But all those goals, all those little milestones are in service of a bigger picture. They're in service of a greater thing, right? That's why we're doing this. If you're the sort of writer who just wants to do this to see, hey, I don't even know if I can do this, and you give it your best shot, good for you. I hope they give you a goddamn parade. I hope you super succeed at this. And I hope you come back and push even harder next time and do more than just a month. But if you're sitting here looking at this going, I'm going to publish a book. I'm going to be an author, goddammit. I'm going to know how to do this. I'm going to do this well. I want to do this so well I can pay my mortgage with this stuff. I want this to be my career. Then starting here in this shallow water of just facades and illusory motivation, where month after month, with all these different activities, the same agenda is forwarded, whether it's a camp or a summer practice or a whatever the hell they're calling it now. It's always been about produce the words, crack the whip, produce the words. the words alone are nothing. It's sort of like saying, I'm going to be in a famous band, and then you just grab an instrument and just start making sound. There's so many things involved. We're all too busy getting caught up in the hashtag. We're all too busy getting caught up in the appearance of, oh my God, look how ferociously busy we all are. It doesn't need to be that way. That is the challenge I lay at the feet of NaNoWriMo. That is why I'm so opposed to it. Because fundamentally, the more you participate in this reindeer game, the worse this is going to be for you. They're taking advantage of you. They're blinding you. They're keeping you into this pool where they prioritize your production as though you can't trust your own ability. And I'm begging you. I'm screaming, I'm demanding for you to recognize your own innate ability. You don't need a .org. You don't need a month. You don't need 30 days. You need the 3 things that they're denying you: motivation, education, opportunity. Let's talk about this 30 days, though, for a minute. Because I don't know if you follow a lot of this, but there's a priority to rush. Oh my God, I got my words done. I didn't get my words done yesterday. I owe those words. I need to get it done as quickly as possible because I have 15, 25, 65, a bajillion other things to do. This is supposed to be laying the groundwork for what's important in the art, but also possibly in a career. This is supposed to help you make a book. This is the foundational material. If we were building a house that you were going to live in, that you were going to occupy, that you would be proud of, that you would bring your family and friends and comrades into, a structure you could say you labored to produce, why on earth would you rush through the foundational material? Why on earth would you do that? It doesn't help anybody. It is good to see you. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry that Twitch didn't notify you. It's all right. It'll be streaming on YouTube. It'll be a whole video. You can catch the beginning then. But it's nice to have you here right now. So we have this foundation. We have this material. We have all this stuff. And all I'm asking for is the opportunity, the chance to be the Morpheus to your creative Neo and unplug you from this nonsense so that you can see how things actually are. Motivation, education, opportunity. Now you're on your own for the opportunity. You're going to have to learn how to carve your schedule, control your time, make those choices of your time so that you can have time to write, time to create. That's consistent for you relative to your schedule. Because putting you on a mandatory every day for 30-day thing is great when you're, trying to quit smoking or get into like a series of support groups or establish some kind of great healthy habit. Like I'm not going to, eat so much junk food after 10 p.m. or anything like that. That's fantastic. That nice, heavy consistency. But creativity doesn't always work that way. Not because we have to summon a muse or some other nonsense, but simply because sometimes it's just really hard to be creative after you have a day where your boss has just been on your case. And the kids are a little too loud and everything just seems a little bit too messy and you say the wrong thing and you piss off your partner and then everything's kind of tense and cranky and you're not in the mood, all right? You just want to sit for a minute. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. But why force it? Again, we're building this foundation. A lot of people, when I make this argument, say, well, that would mean everybody doesn't want to do it. Everybody would do the bare minimum. What that really speaks to is their fundamental belief in the poverty of creativity of people. Their lack of faith in people, that if given a chance, people would do the bare minimum and just sort of sit there. That people are fundamentally lazy, that people can't be motivated, that people don't care about their work. They don't care about making art. They just want a prize. And I don't think that's true. Yeah, there's a segment of the population that does, absolutely. And social media tends to cater to them, and social media tends to use them as the blanket example that speaks for everyone. But by and large, I think if given the opportunity, if given motivation, education, and an opportunity, People will create magical things, things they can be proud of, things that they will work their best at, things will show off to others, things they will consistently put effort in because they see tangible results. And an increasing word count on a spreadsheet, or an increasing word count in a text box, or even the increasing word count on the bottom of a Word doc. Yeah, it's a benefit, but there's so much more to it. So much more to it. It really says a lot to me. It deeply says a lot to me when writers get real defensive when I come after Nano. If it makes you happy, if it's nice that you have friends that you come and hang out and talk to, great. If it's something that gets you to write after long stretches of not writing because you were busy making excuses, great. But don't think for a minute that all you got to do is just knock out Nano for a month and then you're good to go. And you're 10 seconds away from having Oprah interview you or something. Because you're not. Because Nano wants to keep you in the walled garden. Nano wants to keep you surrounded by their walls, playing in their pen, making sure that you always feel a little inadequate, making sure you're always aware that, the level of work you're going to have to do for Nano is the exact same amount of work you're going to have to do the 11 months out of the year, because that way you'll keep coming back to them for help. You'll keep coming back to them for motivation. That's no different than a dealer. You got to get your fix. And you are in charge of your creative drugs, for lack of a better phrase. You are your own dispensary. You are your own user. You are your own supplier. Your choices, not theirs, determine when you put words on the page. And it doesn't always need to be 1,667 words. Some days it's going to be more than that. Some days it's going to be less than that. And you know what? All of that stuff's valid. All of that stuff is just fine. It's not the end of the world, because books are not written in 30 days. And even if you did write a book in 30 days, there's no extra benefit. You don't get a bigger advance. You don't get interviewed faster. You don't get paid faster. It doesn't go to print faster. You don't get more sales just because you say, oh my God, I was done in 28 days. If you were done in 22 days, you don't make more money than somebody done in 23 days. It doesn't work that way. And these are the things they should be telling you. But their assumption that if we gave you the education, it would discourage you, speaks profoundly of their understanding or their feeling about the people who participate in their activity. If we told you the truth, you wouldn't do it, says an awful lot about them and very little about you. So what I want to give you, what I want to help you with, what I want to show you tonight is how to change this, how to do something different, how to do your own Nano, how to take this plan and put Nano on its ear and do your own thing and do it well. If that's a thing you like, if you're interested in that, by all means, and you're not already following the channel, follow the channel. It really does super help. It costs nothing. It's not going to bill you later. It's just nice. And if you're checking this out on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe, because that actually does help. And hello to the new people who came in. It's nice to see you. Hi, welcome back. If you're new, hello entirely. You're awesome. And if you're here again for whatever number of time, it's good to see you too. So tonight I want to give you this roadmap. Tonight I want to pull the wool off your eyes. I want to unplug you. I want to show you how things are. Because I don't think you need to be penned in by a 30-day cap. And I think you're all smart enough to know that 50,000 words isn't nearly enough. And I'll even go one step further and figure out, take a guess that most of you have figured out already what NaNoWriMo is really good for. Because it sure as shit ain't novel writing. NaNoWriMo is in the first draft business. But National First Draft Writing Month doesn't sound sexy on a t-shirt. So they don't call it that. Because NaNoWriMo prizes, above all else, prizes the very simple fact that you just need to vomit words out. Just get it out of your head. Just get it out. Just get it on the page, which is by and large, an incredibly important skill. But by no means is it the second skill, third skill, fifth skill, sixth skill, etc. that you're going to need. But it is the starting point. In this way, Nano is an awful lot like a very small child who loves to start things. Pull all the toys out, put them on the carpet, maybe even play a little bit. But push comes to shove, they just leave the toy there. They don't put it back. They don't pack it up. Somebody else's problem. Somebody else's mess. I'll get to it later, they say. Maybe I'll go back to it. Who knows? I'm just going to leave it out. I'm not going to take any kind of responsibility for what I was doing. I'm not going to take any responsibility for my stuff. I'm just going to constantly create half-started things and leave them there because my ideas are more important than actually producing something concrete. Nano's in the first draft business. And that's fine if all books were first drafts. But you and I know. Oh man, you and I know. In any other context, when we talk about first drafts, what do we say? First drafts are garbage. They're awful. My first draft is shit. So why does a nano draft suddenly get prioritized? You think that might have something to do with the marketing? Because it's still a first draft. Maybe. It's up to you to decide. But if we're going to take this and put it on its ear, if we're going to challenge this, if we're going to tackle this in a new way, then we need to take two very big first steps. And I'm genuinely hoping that you're going to be brave enough to take them with me. And if you are, let me know. Say hi in chat so I know you're here because my chat just went all wonky. And if not, thanks for coming. Have a great night. But the first thing I need you to do, if you're looking for a new roadmap, the first thing I need, hi. The first thing I need you to do is immediately stop caring about the word count. Just get rid of the word count. It's a first draft. Who gives a shit? If it's 50, 60, 70, 80, 290, 485,000. First draft. Word count doesn't matter. Yes, it would be great if you reined it in. It would be great if you could demonstrate a little constraint. It'll save you some effort later. But at the same time, hello. At the same time, you just got to get in the habit of getting the idea out. So don't worry about word count. That's going to be item number 1. If you're cool with that, great. On we go. Second thing I need you to do. Hi. Second thing I need you to do. Absolutely positively stop worrying about the 30-day window. It's dumb. It's just dumb. It's an arbitrary thing for them to hold your attention for 30 days. If you're in the United States during these 30 days, there's a holiday in the middle of it. There is the prelude to the capitalism destruction that is Black Friday and Christmas. It's poorly positioned for actual art production and fantastically positioned for holding your attention and creating stress. Why on earth would somebody want to put themselves into a position where they hold your attention for 30 days and stress you out unless they had no interest in you doing anything other than being stressed out? Isn't that fascinating? So, if we're not going to pay attention to word count, we don't need to pay attention to 30 days. Would it really be bad if it was 31 days? Or 32? Or gasp? 40? Do you care? Really, truly, do you care? It's a first draft. Who cares how long it takes? 10 days, 20 days, 40 days, 30 days, 22 days, a weekend, a year, 5 years, a decade. It's a first draft. What's the most important thing about a first draft? That you finished it. There's your benchmark. But National Finish Your First Draft Month doesn't look good on a t-shirt. So we don't say anything about it. So what we have instead, for our revamped roadmap, is a first draft where we don't care how long it takes us, and we don't care how big or how small it is. Our goal for a first draft is to tell the whole story, get it all out of our heads as completely as possible. Ideally in one manuscript. But if you want to put separate chapters in separate manuscript files, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. It's just that at some point you're going to have to paste everything together. That's fine. You do whatever system works for you, but by and large, get it all out of your head. As messy and rambling and unsure as it is. And if you have to leave yourself some notes, hey, don't forget to do this, don't forget, fine. Leave yourself all the notes. Leave yourself every piece of breadcrumb you want. Because now we are well and true off the beaten path that NaNoWriMo ascribes us to, demands that we do. Because the thing we need to do as creatives, the thing we need to do as bookmakers, is be willing to carve our own path, blaze our own trails, move contrary to traffic when possible. Go against some grains, is what I'm saying. Because Nano doesn't want you to. Nano wants conformity. Nano wants your word counts. Nano wants you playing in the little games. Nano wants you huddled up with your local community, which is fine if they didn't have you also on some level competing with them, trying to win. Yes, I made big giant air quotes. Because what's winning? Finishing the draft? Taking steps, multiple steps, substantive steps towards publishing, towards launching this career you talk about having, towards doing this thing you dream about being. When you put it that way, yes, it looks huge and enormous compared to just, oh my God, 50,000 words. And if you didn't know better, 50,000 words seems huge. And it seems like quite an accomplishment. It is an accomplishment. But it's not enough. It's not the right accomplishment to focus on. Yes, I was very confused about the first time you could win Nano. Yeah, there's no winning. It's sort of like when you win PitMad. You get to win a chance to have somebody read your work, which is the thing you should be doing when you were querying in the first place. So you've won a chance to do the thing you should be doing already. That's sort of like saying, I've won the chance to mow my lawn. I was going to mow the lawn anyway. But framing it as winning allows people to have a hierarchy, allows them to rank, allows people to create competition, allows them to pressure, allows them to stress, all of which distracts from creativity. Because if you're trying to figure out, well, shit, how do I write this story with this multiple generations? You're going to take a little bit of that focus, a little bit of that effort away and start worrying about how you're going to, oh my God, I have to beat that guy. I got to do better than this person. And you don't. You just need to make your thing. It's art. It's subjective. It's supposed to be subjective. We're not all going to like the same stuff, and we're not all going to like the same stuff for the exact same reasons. And no one gives a shit if you won NaNoWriMo. Do you think from a publishing standpoint people care? If you stuck, I won NaNoWriMo in a query letter, you've used up a sentence in a query letter that could better sell the whole book, and you better hope that whole book is bigger than the amount you wrote for Nano. It's not a thing. So let's not make it a thing. Let's do away with the word count. Let's do away with the schedule. This is the threshold. This is the moment. Do you see that? This is the line in the sand. This is where we're going to separate the people who were just in this for the hobby, who were just in this because, hey, it's Nano. I want to give it a try. I've never done it before. I'm not really sure if I'm going to be serious about it. I just want to see if I can do it. That's fine. But they're going to stay on this side of the line. Cross the threshold, come to the other side of the line, and now it's book time. Now it's storycraft time. Now it's publishing time. Now writing isn't the only step, it's just the first step. So, if you're willing to cross that line, and I hope you are, because you are all good enough to do so. Again, motivation, education, opportunity. Those are your permission slips. That's the key. That's the shibboleth. That's the thing that gets you over. That's what you need. You can't just do one and not the others. Motivation by itself is hollow. See, Nano. Education by itself lacks context and seems dry. See, the #writing community. Opportunity without education and motivation seems paralyzing, wasted, unsure. But you combine those three, and all of a sudden you have somebody with a plan who knows how to execute on that plan, who knows how to do something, and they're going to do their best at it because they know that they can't do those next steps without first completing this step. They know that if they're on step 1, they got to get to step 2 before they even think about step 3. That's really important. That's a real big thing I need you to understand. This is systematic. There's a nice, somewhat orderly progression from one thing to the next. And as we walk through this next roadmap, as we walk through this whole roadmap, in fact, it's going to be nice and organized and nice and orderly. There's going to be some flexibility to it. You can approach any of this in any order you want. I'm going to propose an order because I think for me that's an order that would work. But listen to the whole thing, hear me out, and then realize that you can tailor this however you need to for you. Because writing is subjective. And it's not enough to say that, well, all you have to do to be a writer is write 1,667 words a day for 30 days. Because you can't win a marathon running sprints. And we don't publish first drafts. So we need to turn this practice into a product. We need to turn this idea, this lemonade stand, this sort of roadside little attraction, we need to turn it into something that we can put pride behind and motivation under. And it's not going to be easy. There's going to be some challenge. But you're good enough. You have to know you're good enough. And yeah, that feeling of good enough can come and go with the breeze. There can be moments where you are most definitely certain you're good enough, and then other moments where you are most definitely sure you're not. That's fine. No one is demanding that you have steadfast, constant, uninterrupted super confidence. But you do have to have some confidence. And it can yo-yo and it can bungee and bounce around, but you got to have some. Because at the end of the day, the only way you're going to be able to tell your story and make your book is if you do the work, because other people could try. But it's not going to be you. You, right there, you. Yes, you, I'm talking to you. You are the only one who can do your thing your way to the best of your ability. So if we get rid of the time constraint and we get rid of the word count, how do we do this? Isn't that too big? Didn't I just take away the only boundaries that Nano has? Yeah, I did. But in eliminating those boundaries, I've opened this up to any number of other structures. I've done away with the old stuff. We have literally a blank canvas. And we are going to paint, trace, and draw our way through whatever roadmap we need to get done whatever it is we need to get done. But to do that, we're going to need to figure out what it is we have to do. Because it's not just writing. And it's not writing every day. It's nice if it is. It's great if it is. But people have, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing this correctly, day jobs, or bills, or families, or other responsibilities that take their time and their attention and their focus and their energy and their mindset and their emotional comfort away. Nano doesn't have any respect for that. art, creating your art, making your thing, absolutely respects that. And yes, just to be clear, just so that we know, there are going to be some times where you're going to have to be able to sit in the chair some days when you just plain don't want to and make something happen. But that's not every day. And some days it is a better choice to sit and play with the kids, or take a nap, or read a book, or talk to somebody online, or do something other than writing. Because it is the time away, it is the separation from the art that allows us to come back to the art rejuvenated. That's how we refill the creative tank. That's how we get, well, if we're talking literal, actual marathons, you know how we have those people who stick their arms out with the little paper cups and they drink, and then people chuck them, and that's like your little break, or they get a little like protein bar or banana or something. Yeah, those little pieces of refreshment, those little recharge things, those little, handoffs while you're in progress. That's how you help refuel the machine to run the marathon. How you're going to refuel the machine for your art means some days you choose not to make it. Now, you don't owe yourself. Let's dispel that immediately. You never owe yourself the words. That's a thing Nano forwards or suggests by way of its culture. It's not an outright rule, but that's certainly the unspoken attitude that you need to have. Well, you didn't write today, so you owe yourself. Because remember, you got to win. What do you want to be, a loser? You need to win. So if it's 1,667 words a day and you didn't write them, well, today you need to do 2 doses of 1,667 words. And God forbid you fall behind 3 days. But you don't want to be a loser, do you? Dispense with all that. Cast it to the side. Pay it no mind. That's no different than the guy standing on the street corner playing 3-card monte asking you to figure out where the queen is. It's just a hustle. It's a sleight of hand trick to divorce your money from you, to take your attention away from you, to take your focus away from you. That's all Nano wants to do. Give you the illusion of accomplishment. And I'm over here telling you that instead of playing 3-card monte and feeling like, oh man, you're up $50, I'm going to come over here and tell you that you could have kept the 50 you had, and we could have done other things with it, and you could have felt better. So don't neglect, never neglect the things you feel you should do, need to do, can do in order to refill whatever your creative tank is. Now, everybody's going to refill that thing differently. Maybe it just means you sleep in on a Saturday. Maybe it's, you spend 2 extra hours playing with your kids. Maybe it's, you take an extra long shower one day. I don't know. You order a pizza. Who knows? It's your life. It's your tank. You refill it when and how you need. It's shocking to me, frankly, the number of people who I will watch this month, and you can watch them too. They'll be on social media. They won't shut up about it. How they fall into a hole and how they push themselves out of it. But they don't push themselves out of it in a healthful way. They don't sit there and go, okay, well, I can't make my word count today or tomorrow because I got this responsibility or that thing. I'm just going to do the best I can. No, they're like, okay, I got to sit down and write. So I'm going to forego sleep for 2 hours. I'm going to push through. I'm going to get an extra cup of coffee. And I'm just going to do this. Why? There's no prize. Why are you doing that to yourself? Do you think that's going to help you make better art? Really? When was the last time forcing yourself to do something you could have done easier and slower? When was forcing it ever a good idea? I can't even think off the top of my head of an activity that gets better the more you force it to work. Whether we're trying to get a USB thing in the plug, or whether we're trying to make the lawnmower start, or whether we're trying to cook dinner faster, like rushing accomplishes nothing. So let's not rush. Let's instead just break this down into 2 things we need to do every time we sit down to create. 2 things. 2. Just 2. We are going to write some. We'll talk about how much in a second. But we're going to write some, and that's one thing. And we're going to prepare some. Write plus prepare. That's it. Now hang on. Somebody out there right now, I guarantee it, somebody out there right now has had the thought, but I only have this one block of time to work in. You're saying I shouldn't fill it all the way with writing? That I need to split my time? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I need you to lay up a little bit. I need you to take your foot off the gas a little bit. Save some of that energy so that you can transition from writing to planning. Every time. Because the thing I need you to learn, the critical thing, is that the ability to summon the creative energy that makes you feel inspired so that you had a really good writing day and knocked out that huge long pile of words, that didn't happen because 2 astrological bodies got into some kind of line. That didn't happen outside of your control. That didn't happen because a butterfly flapped wings somewhere. It happened because you put yourself into a position. Sorry, I'm late. I was busy not doing nano. That's fine. That's cool. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here or being busy. Good for you. I hope you got your stuff done. Anyway, you have to learn that you can pull up short on the jumper. If we're going to use a sports metaphor, you have to learn you can take your foot off the gas and save some of that energy so that you can transition from writing to planning, so that you can learn that you can jump back to the writing when you need to. You're in charge of it. It's your foot on the gas pedal here. You're in charge of the throttle. You're in charge of the flow of words. If you've never had this kind of control before, it can feel very awkward. But I guarantee you it's under your control. It's a summonable thing. You just need to sit and focus to do it. And chances are, when you eliminate the combination of distractions and pressures applied to you by 1,667 words a day every day for 30 days, or winning, or community, or the hashtag writing community, or any other nonsense, and it's just you and your art, at least for a little window of time, developed and designed by you, you can split that time so that you can get some writing done, some producing done, and then some planning. Because the more planning you can do going forward, the easier those subsequent steps towards the big milestones are going to be. I know, it's just a first draft. And yes, the goal is to just vomit it all out, get it all out of your head, in whatever shape, in whatever form. I know. But it still needs to be a form. It still needs to be somewhere in there a complete story. And as you write it, you are laying the groundwork with every word for what comes next. Once you decide what a character looks like, that's their description until you change it. Once you figure out that, oh, okay, this is the romance subplot I want. This is the action beat I want. This is the horse I want. This is the setting I want. This is the world building rule I want. Once you go through that, those are decisions. They're not set in stone. They're never set in stone until the thing is totally done and you're done tinkering with it. But for now, it's a first draft. You are just literally crafting something out of nothing. You are putting words on the page and then periodically, regularly, consistently giving those words on the page new word friends. It's a growing and evolving thing. One step after the next. Under your control. No word count, no deadline, just production. And we're splitting it into some writing space and some prep space. So yes, today was day one. In theory, everybody sat down today and knocked out their 1,667 words. To be fair, Most of the people in my orbit don't do that. But let's assume hypothetically out there listening to this, watching this, people did. And if you did, good for you. And if you didn't, good for you. And if you're halfway there, good for you. And if you're going to do it later, good for you. There's no condition where I'm going to say not good for you. Because the effort is what matters. Because you got to create something out of nothing and get it out of your brain and onto the page. That's the magic trick. That's the thing. That's what we're doing here. This is National First Draft Writing Month. Everything else is nonsense. Everything else is horse shit. It's designed to market you a bumper sticker and a t-shirt. Just get the idea down. We can always change it later. You can always go back. But for now, just make some starting decision. We write for a little bit, and then we jump to the planning stages. There are 4 big things you get to choose between when it comes to planning. I'm going to give you an order. It is by no means the official single certifiable only order, but it's the order, I think works. Because 1, it's the order I have used before myself, and 2, I think it's an order that makes the most fluid sense. Okay? So we're going to write something. I don't know. Your book, your genre, whatever it is. Put something down. It doesn't matter what. Doesn't matter if you're starting with a prologue. Doesn't matter if you're starting 4,000 years in the past. Doesn't matter if you're starting with dialogue. Doesn't matter if you're starting with an action scene. Doesn't matter if you're starting with a dream sequence. Doesn't matter if you're starting with a laser. Doesn't matter if you're starting with a vampire. Put something down, please. That's all you need to do. Just put something down. Anything. Any amount of words. Just get the idea onto the page. Ideally, all in the same language. Ideally, hopefully, all in the same tense. But if we have to make these sacrifices to get the idea out, so be it. Just get the idea from your brain onto the page. That's part of the writing time. That's part of the writing experience. Okay? That's the writing part. Now we're going to do prep. Now there are 4 things we're going to prep. You can work on characters. You can work on the world. You can work on the main plot. Or you can work on theme. Those are the 4 things that will lay the pillars and strengthen and shore up the foundation for this first draft so that you have an easier time going forward into a second draft if that's where you want to go, if that's what you want to do. Hint, it's really what you should be doing. But if you're going to call it a day because you're just, hey, well, I'm just trying Nano out, I just want to see if I can do it, cool. That's awesome. Good for you. I hope you enjoy it. But remember, we crossed a line 32 or so minutes ago. We crossed a line. We jumped that threshold. We're in this for more than just, hey, I'm trying this to try it. No, we're in this to do. We are artists. We are making art. So we are going to split our production with our preparation. So I want to walk through each of these 4 things. Character, world, plot, and theme. Part of this information is individually covered in character, world, and plot. Other videos you can find on the YouTube channel. They still might be available as VODs here on Twitch, but I don't know how long the window on Twitch is. Ultimately, it's not important. It's on the YouTube channel. But by and large, some of this is going to be repeated, but some of this is not. Some of this is new. Because yes, I spent time and thought of a new way to teach this. I see more people came in. Hello, new people. Hi, it's nice to see you. Thank you for coming. I hope you enjoy this. I hope you dig this. I hope this helps you. Of course, I say that and then people immediately dip out. I get it. But here we are all the same. So we're going to write something, and let's say we're going to work on character. We want to start with our main character, whether we're writing in third person or first person, doesn't really matter at this moment, but we're going to start with our main character because we need to build a main character because the reader needs somebody to relate to. This character is called an anchor character because they anchor the emotional state of our reader. What our main character feels, our reader should ideally feel. Okay? Now, it's not enough just to have a real whiz-bang, neato, keen physical description of our character. It's not all about the stubble. It's not all about the ripply abs or the long flowing hair or whatever terrible thing some dude is saying about bosoms. The most important thing about a character is the ability for a human being to relate to them, which means we need to talk about how human beings relate to things and people. Human beings, particularly readers, look to build relationships between things. They want to know if the things they're reading about, however made up they might be, have the same sort of feelings and the same sort of experiences and the same sort of responses to experiences that they do. So that way, even if you have the most wild, crazy hedge wizard living in the most fantasy kingdom than ever fantasy kingdom, because they have the same sort of experience with a landlord that perhaps your reader does, your reader can feel like they have some kind of connection with your crazy wild hedge wizard. Likewise, in a romance novel, your bubbly protagonist who just can't seem to settle down and figure out what they want, that's something the reader is looking for, this idea of just life being so busy and so crazy, and for so long they've put their own life on the back burner, but now here it's their time to shine. You are trying to build a character, a main character, the anchor character, or if you have more than one main character, one of the anchor characters, around some kernel, around some idea where a reader can relate to it. So the question you need to ask, first and foremost, when developing a character is, how is the reader going to relate to this character? That is not the same as how should the reader feel about this character. That is not the same as how should the reader feel when this character does cool shit. That is not the same as how should the reader picture this character. The question is, how is the reader going to relate to this character? Over what ideas, plural, more than one, yes, you need more than one, over what ideas should a reader be able to connect, sympathize, empathize, or understand this character's experience? Yeah, you're going to make a list. You're going to make a list because this list is going to help you grow the character arc we're about to talk about. Because let's say, for example, that you have a character who their point of access, the way they build a bridge between their character existence and the reader, is they're somebody put in an unbelievable position that they don't feel ready for. Perhaps they are young, pale, pasty Timothy Chalamet, and Oscar Isaac is dead. Sorry to spoil a 40-something-year-old book. Oscar Isaac is dead, and Timothy Chalamet has to absorb the role of leadership, and he doesn't really feel like he's up to it because the movie doesn't spend nearly enough time actually giving Timothy Chalamet anything to do other than look left and look right. But all the same, let's suppose that's the bridge you want to build for your character. I say that, and immediately the viewer count drops. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to offend the Timothy Chalamet fan club. I'm sure he'll be great as Wonka. There's plenty of looking left and right to do. But by and large, let's suppose it's all about figuring out whether or not you're fitting a mantle that you've had to take on. Okay. That relationship, that thing you're going to use, that's your arc. It might need some bending and tweaking. It might need some, extra stuff stipulated into it. But that's the sort of idea you want to build your primary character arc around. Because that's the journey that the character is going to go through, that the reader is most going to connect with, because that's the point of connection the reader has with the character. If you make your arc something different, a point of connection that the reader doesn't have with them, you run the risk of leaving your reader feeling somewhat disconnected from your character. Like the arc feels a little superficial or hollow or underdeveloped. So you want to make sure there's some congruence between how the character connects with the reader and what the character is doing over the course of the story. Does that make sense? I'm going to imagine you nodding while I sip some tea. All right. What else can we do for this character? So we found the arc. We found the arc. How do they relate to the reader? Now we're going to expand on this arc a little bit, okay? So we have this core idea, but we need to give it a vector. We need to give it some direction. So how do we do that? We take this arc, we take this idea, this kernel, if you want to use the technical term. We take this kernel and we add a vector. A vector being a challenge or a crisis that the character has to overcome that speaks to some part of the relationship they have with the reader. For example, if we have a character who's got, the sort of this mantle put upon them and they don't feel like they're ready to accept it, they don't know if they'll grow into a leadership position, let's say, right? Then the arc is going to be something about growing into a leadership position. And the conflict is that there's somebody they have to unseat, or there's somebody they have to get the approval of in order to obtain that leadership position. And all of a sudden, we've taken the relationship they have with the reader and added a conflict to it. And I don't know if you noticed this, we literally just built the arc. That's your character arc. It is that simple. It can be that simple. Everything else, anything else. Well, what if they're like a ninja and they're part of a rival clan? That's just set dressing. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But how does this character relate to the reader? And what challenge can come out of this relationship? What obstacle is it that can complicate or prevent the possible relationship with the reader? What's in the character's way? And lastly, the last piece of this, before we get deeper into character still, the last thing we give them is a goal within the story. Because having that relationship with the reader, having a conflict to overcome, this is where you do want a goal. Because the reader's going to want to see that character achieve that goal. So what's their goal? They want to win the spelling bee. They want to ask the really attractive other human to the school dance. They want to score a basket and win the big game. They want to crane kick the blonde kid in the face. They want to become a musketeer. They want to fly a spaceship. Whatever their goal might be. Goal, challenge, relationship. All I did was work backwards there. Still with me? Again, I'm imagining you nodding until you say otherwise. If you don't understand, speak up in chat. I can't hear you if you're talking, so jump in and we can hash this out. But so far, that's all you need for a character arc, okay? Doesn't matter who the character is, doesn't matter where they live, doesn't matter how many fingers and toes they have, doesn't matter, what their favorite shirt color is, or whether or not they would listen to music in the morning, or what their kind of cup of coffee is, or whatever other bullshit the hashtag writing community puts forth every day as the inane question that's somehow supposed to challenge you to become a better writer. None of that matters. We just built a character arc. Now, we need to develop this character just a little bit more. I know it's a first draft. But there's one more question. And I know you can do this. I know you can do this. There's one more question. How? How does the character do whatever it is they're going to do? How are they going to face this conflict? How are they going to win this prize? What do they do? What tasks, skills, abilities do they use to try and get done the things they need to get done? Do they use the magic sword of their ancestors? Do they cast ritual magic? Do they climb the corporate ladder? Do they totally stab dudes in the dark? What do they do? How do they do it? If you disconnect and pick a really disparate how and make it really far flung from the goal. So let's say, for example, we have this character who wants to assume the mantle of leadership. They want to grow into becoming a leader. And you've elected them to, you said, well, how they're going to do it, they're going to win the pie eating contest in town. Or they have a real skill at being able to eat anything. You're going to have to come up with a really contrived system of events in order to justify using that skill, that ability, in order to accomplish the goal they have or develop the arc they have. You want to try and get your skill related to your arc in some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be like they want to be the best boxer in the world and the skill they're going to use is boxing. That's a little simplistic. It's not necessarily bad, but it is a little simplistic. But you don't want to pick like super disparate things that are totally unrelated or really complicated to relate to one another in some kind of effort like it's going to make you a better writer, because it's not. It's going to actually give you the opposite impression to the reader. The reader's going to look at it and go, this writer has no idea what the hell they're doing. So let's make this easier on you. Let's make this simpler on you. Any questions so far on the character stuff? Because now we're going to move on. Now we're going to move next to world building. I'm assuming a short delay because I don't have any warning messages. I'm not seeing any questions in any chat. So I'm going to get a mouthful of tea, and then we're going to move on to world building. If you just came in, remember that what we've done is we've taken our writing period of time, whatever it might be, and we've split it into the act of writing and developing stuff. And we're talking about the stuff to develop, just in case you came in and missed like the first hour, which is totally cool. It's good to have you. Here we go. So we just talked character. Now we're going to talk world. This is going to be a different set of stuff. Yes, ultimately, at the end of all this, when we get to theme, we're going to show how to tie this all together. But for right now, we are just laying building blocks. So it's okay if these things are very different than the last thing we just talked about. Especially world building, because it's very different from the other stuff. World building starts big picture, and it zooms in. Starts big picture, zooms in. Okay? Too many people, especially in a first draft, go the other way. They start really narrow, and then all of a sudden they realize they have to make the world very big. Don't. You're going to accomplish the exact same thing starting big and going small. In fact, it's going to be easier. Because it won't feel like you're forcing, and it won't feel convenient. Because the big problem, the big red flag with world building is that there's just enough detail and just enough specific details to make things feel convenient. Oh man, it would be really great if my social government had a rule that said everybody owns goats, because then I could have a goat herder. And then sure enough, conveniently, oh yeah, I guess they're a goat herder now. There's nothing wrong with a little convenience, but when convenience comes to dominate every piece of world building, the world building seems a little lazy. And you deserve better, and the reader deserves better. So how do we get started world building? Well, first and foremost, like we talked about in the world video, the first thing you need to do is figure out how close or how far your world, the world of your story, is from the reader's world. Because we are going to figure out all the ways your character's story's world, whatever you want to call it, can relate to the reader's world. Now, in part, this is going to be pretty straightforward because it's going to include things like oxygen and physics, which is fine. But it's on some parts going to be much bigger and much more sort of broad, and you're not going to, you maybe don't consider it right away as world building detail. Like, it includes corporations with a pretty standard business hierarchy. It has fax machines that still receive faxes because apparently faxes are still a thing in businesses. Nobody likes going through all their emails at 8:52 in the morning. There are long commutes in traffic. Find all the ways your story's world relates to your reader's world. It might help you, but not necessarily, but it might help you to make a list of all the things your two worlds have in common. Well, they both have a London. They both have a Berlin, Germany. They both have a Disney World. They both have oxygen. They both have, plants. I don't know. Some of this stuff you're going to hand wave away and not even write down because it's obvious. Well, it's like Earth, only, it's a medieval setting. Fine. If it's clear for you, don't worry about it. But on those parts where you are making specific choices to facilitate your story, those are the things you write down. This stuff is only for you. Nobody's coming to check your work. This isn't grade school. But you want to leave yourself as frequently as possible, as many clear breadcrumbs as possible, just in case your time changes, your flexibility changes, your demands on your time change, so that you have to take 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, a month off. You know where you left off. So you're leaving yourself potentially future breadcrumbs. Again, this is something that Nano won't do, because this isn't just about 1,667 words at a clip. It's about leaving yourself a trail so that you can pick it up when you need to. So what are all the ways your story's world is similar to your reader's world? Which is a version of how does your reader relate to the world? Okay, that's part 1. Part 2. What are the biggest, I don't just mean in physical scale, but the most frequent, the most common, the most dangerous, the most obvious, the most fill in the blank, the most something different from the reader's world? It's the reader's world, except there are floating continents. It's the reader's world, but there's sentient, every middle manager is a chicken person. I don't know. The world is dominated by 10-foot tall red ants. Sure, I don't know. Make a list of all the differences. These differences, and you're not going to use all of them, but the more you can think of, the better. These differences allow you for an opportunity to develop scenes around these differences. Maybe there'll be action scenes. Maybe there'll be dialogue beats. Maybe there'll be little throwaway things in exposition. But it's going to help individuate your work. So if you're creating a science fiction universe, let's say, and everybody lives on these big, giant super colony ships that travel across huge distances, and you want to distinguish that from something Asimovian or Hubbarded or, something like that, and you really want to, dive in, finding the differences can allow you to put a spotlight to them and allow you to develop them in a different way. So we found similarities, and now we found differences. Ready for the next thing? Third thing. What are the most critical rules of this world? If it's something like, let me think of it. If it's something like, well, it's a theocracy based on Mosaic law. Sure, there you go. That's fine. If the most important rule is that your psychedelic mushroom sand has to constantly be in flow so that your government and interstellar travel work, great, there you go. If it's no one can bear a slight to their honor, if it's once a pirate, always a pirate, find the rules. How many rules? You're going to need at least 2. And ideally, you can do as many as you want, but chances are it's probably going to be feasible for you to stop at like 10. Not every rule is going to end up in the book. Again, this is just fuel, potential fuel for potential fire, potential fuel for potential development. You might not bring it up. It might not even show up in the draft. But it's to get you in the habit of crafting decisions and making sure that these things exist. These rules need to be fairly universal. I'm not talking about the rules that are unknown to the fish out of water, because that's where you're going to get story material from. I mean, these are rules that are known to people who are in and of the world. Everybody knows that's how this works, whether it's written down and codified or just socially accepted. This is just how this works. 1312 is an example of that. It's just how it works. Or everybody knows that, you know, we shoot vampires first and ask questions later. Or the amount of abs and stubble a person has in a romance novel is directly proportional to the amount of troubled backstory they have. What are the rules of your world? Write them down. At least 2. Stop somewhere around 10 to 12. Okay? Then we'll do the last part. I want you to describe up to half a dozen locations. You can do more, but somewhere between 1 and 6 as a starting point, super helpful. And really describe them. Don't just say, it's in a forest clearing. Okay, that's a good start, but don't stop there. Forest clearing. There are 3 toppled trees people use as benches. There's a bunch of rocks. There's a fire pit. There's this really strange big rock that looks like a lion's head called Lion Rock that everybody uses sort of as a navigation point. Or it's a small coastal New England town where the 2 major things the town serves up are various fried clam dishes and social intrigue about what hunky man is going to fall in love with what mousy girl in a heteronormative romance story. Or there's the big, spooky, old, abandoned hospital that some people say are haunted, but it's only until the one intrepid 5th grader gets dared to go inside that he learns the shocking truth. Find me some locations. Clarify their pictures. Give them details. Make it exciting. Remember, you're doing this. You're laying this groundwork. You're making this map so that on the off chance you have to take a day off or you choose to take a day off, you know where to pick up. You know where you left off. You can get sucked right back into that creative storm. Make sense? That's the world building part. Writing and character, writing and world building. We have 2 sections left. More tea. More tea. Badly needed that today. All right. Here we go. Next section. This one's possibly a problem for people, but I'm going to try and keep this pretty straightforward, okay? Don't freak out. Don't freak out. You can do this. Writing and plot. It's time to craft a main plot. Now, thankfully, if we've come this far in this order, we have some possible plots already. Go back and look at your character development. Look at your arc. Could you extrapolate your arc into your book's main plot? It's okay if you can. It's okay if you can't. But maybe that's a way to craft a main plot. Who knows? Maybe if you go back and look at your world building, is there some rule in society that stands out? Now, granted, we don't always want to get into the habit of your plots only being about rules in your world that get challenged, or only make it about challenging a rule and nothing else, because then the story feels a little stiff or a little stilted. But by and large, maybe that's something we can add to, or it's at least a jumping off point. But when we're talking about our plot, we need a few things. So, item number 1. What is the most dynamic? Meaning, what's the most risky, the most urgent, the most fill in the blank conflict that your story, that your world and character have? My character is desperate for a day off. They've been working, double shifts for 40 days straight. They need a new job. They can't seem to find any happiness. They're always finding new and different ways to screw up their relationship. They're, pretty sure they're about to die. They had premonitions of their own death. They want to win the bread contest at the county fair. What's the big conflict that exists in the world and directly, to some degree, affects or could potentially affect your main character? Now, as to the degree of impact on that character, that's up to you. But there has to be a thing, right? There has to be this sort of overlap point in the Venn diagram between conflict, main character, and world. That's where the plot sits. Who out of all these people is going to sit on the pointy metal sword chair? Who is going to, overthrow the one emperor so that we can have a 3-book, 4-book, 5-book, 6-book series about human worm hybrids? Who's going to become the wizard who saves the day? Who's going to pull the sword from the stone? Find the confluence of a world-building piece of information and a character element. Most of the time, that's going to be a pretty rich soil space for plot. Okay? Next plot thing. What opposition, whether it's a person or a force, meaning it's not personified, but it's just like starvation or drowning or frostbite or who knows what antagonist, bad guy, or antagonistic force, concept, opposes the character getting their goal, winning the plot, overcoming an obstacle, satisfying the condition of their challenge? Well, they're a bunch of nerds and they're trying to win the regatta against the jocks. He's a young plucky lawyer trying to win his first case. She is a grad student who ran into a dangerous political conspiracy and she's just trying to survive. She's in love with a superhero. They just want to be taken seriously as an artist. Something like that. Is there an opposition? What's in the way? Is it a person? Is it a thing? What is it? Write it down. There's your third thing. And then describe it. If it's a person, you've got 2 parts. What do they want? Why do they want it? 2 parts. If it's a force, how risky and urgent, how constant is this force? I am Tom Hanks, marooned on an island. I could be killed by the elements. I could die of exposure. It's a pretty prevalent threat. It's everywhere. I could drown. I could be, shredded on coral. I could starve. I could get sunstroke. I could get attacked by an animal. I could freeze to death. I could get pneumonia. I could get an infection. Exposure and injury are a real serious thing throughout the story. That antagonist is going to be and needs to be positioned in some way, shape, or form against your character. Not necessarily in the first chapter, not necessarily in every other chapter, but at some point in this book, they need to be part of the climax of this book. Your character, your anchor character from way back, needs to directly take action to directly oppose them in an effort to obtain or overcome the challenge, obtain their goal or overcome their challenge. Tom Hanks eventually needs to build a raft to overcome the possibility of being stuck on the island forever. The person who wants to be taken seriously as an artist needs to finally, show at the, create art, stand up against all the people who disbelieve in them, and show their art at the exposition. The kid who just wants to dance in the small town needs to go to the school dance in the small town and Kevin Bacon all over that shit. You need to have your antagonist or your antagonistic force go up against your protagonist because that's part of your climax. And if you think you're being clever because, oh, well, that's not really my big bad. That's just like a guy. My antagonist is like off in the wings and he just sends a goon. That requires so much foreknowledge. We also have to know about multiple guys now. A guy off screen, a guy off stage, a force off screen, a force off stage doesn't feel like a real threat. It's going to feel like you're cheating the audience. Because the opposition the character should be facing should be on the page, should be directly in front of them, should be involved and invested in this story. Telling me that there's a bigger, badder thing in the wings, well, then what the hell am I reading the story for? How can I connect to that? It's clear to you, you know what you mean, but I'm the reader. I don't know how to relate to that. It's not the same as saying, well, there's a scary thing under the bed, but there's an even scarier thing in the closet. That makes sense if I'm in a room with both a space under the bed and a closet. But if my nearest closet, wherein there's a monster, is like 4 rooms away, I'm just not going to go near the closet. I'm going to move on with my day. It's not going to feel like a threat. It's not going to feel like a problem, no matter how cool you think it is. So your antagonist has to be positioned directly against your protagonist at some point. That's the climax. And it's through that climax that your plot gets resolved. Can you have multiple antagonists? Sure. But you've got to rank them. Who's the top of the food? Who's the top of the antagonist food chain? You don't necessarily have to defeat these sub-bosses to reach the big boss at the end. You can. There's nothing wrong with that. But there has to be some kind of hierarchy where overcoming one villain makes it possible or feasible to move on and accomplish, or overcome, I should say, to overcome others. Generally, you want to try and limit the number of total antagonists because it's going to get really exhausting for the reader to keep track of everything. Like, I'm just one guy and I have to defeat 7, furious people. Oh, okay. It's probably better to either split them all into 7 separate stories. Because if we put them all in one story, they're going to get 1/7 the potential space they could. It's going to feel rushed. Bad guy hierarchy. Sauron is to Witch King as Saruman is to Ark as Commander is. Yes, absolutely. It's a bad guy hierarchy. It trickles down so that we have to go through one to get to the next, to get to the next, to get to the next. That is what's called linear hierarchy. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Super works. It doesn't need to be that many steps. Sometimes it's just, there's the sniveling shitheel bad guy and his big goon. Or sometimes it's just one guy. Sometimes it's 3. Who knows? Sometimes it's a whole team of jocks trying to squash the nerds. But it's hierarchical to some degree because we want to create that kind of linearity and give your story some options, give your story some open doors, because at some point we're going to have to confront, the big goon at the airfield before we go off and fight the big goon who's got the Ark of the Covenant. We want to try and frame this so that there's proportional, appropriate challenges for your protagonist throughout the story. We don't want to just glob all the challenge to one part of the book. We've got little challenges kind of spread out all the way through. Like we've put butter on toast and we've spread it across the whole piece as opposed to just kind of globbing it in one edge and calling it a day. I know this is a first draft, but we're laying the groundwork going forward. The better you can prep here, the easier it's going to be for that second draft, that third draft, those revisions, getting the feedback, getting it edited. The smoother your process now, the easier it is down the road. But again, don't worry about word count. Don't worry about how long it takes you. That's plot. Ready for the next thing? Any questions so far? We've covered a lot, and I kind of picked up speed. If you need some help, holler. Else we're going to keep moving. And I'm going to keep drinking tea because it's keeping me from, sounding disgusting into the mic or coughing at you. Because it is crazy dry in this office. I have to figure out a way to, better humidify. I think it's the heat. I think it's just keep the place warm. It gets dry in here, which in turn dries out my throat and dries out my lips. And as somebody less than politely pointed out, there's a lot of mouth sounds that is apparently quite gross for people. And I'm not trying to be disgusting. It's just it's a thing I am now aware of. So I am constantly drinking. I'm working on it, you guys. All right. Ready for the next thing? All right, let's go on one more. This is something I don't see talked about nearly enough until it's probably too late for a lot of people. This is one of those things that comes in late because, not enough people describe it well. Theme. Theme is really important. Theme is the duct tape that holds your story together. Theme is the thing or one of the things that contributes to your story feeling like more than just a recitation of actions. Theme, and I'm sure I've described this elsewhere, but I'll describe it here too. And I'm sure some of you listening to this could probably echo this in your sleep. Theme is a lesson your reader can take and install into their own life. And they can use your character and your character's struggle and the overall flow of the story as a model for a certain kind of behavior, action, or decision that they can move forward with in their life. The skinny kid from Brooklyn who suddenly becomes a super soldier and keeps doing the right thing all the way through the story, that's something I can take a look at and try and be more like in my own life. The nerdy kid who examines his own life and realizes he has to become a superhero, and this is his mantle because with great power comes great responsibility, is something I can take and put in my own life. The story of the never say die, driven to succeed against the odds, upstart, roguish lawyer against the big giant corporation who survives all manner of personal slights and attacks and dangers and harm in order to do the right thing in the end is something that I can take and put in my own life to some degree. The first thing you need to do when you think about your theme is think about the actions and the plot your character is going to undergo in the story. What's a lesson you can extrapolate from that? Not a thing you would explain that the character is doing. Oh, the character is going to go to the grocery store and buy butter. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what's the lesson here. Like, if your story is about going to the store and buying butter, is your lesson, well, my character gave their word that they were going to the store to buy butter. So is the lesson, if you say you're going to do a thing, do a thing? Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the lesson. Step one, what's the lesson? This lesson should be a lesson attempted and accomplished, thought of as a requirement. 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to succeed at this. It just makes life easier. It's not boring or bad or childish or stupid. It's just easier to do. You'll be better off. Just humor the expert for a moment. What's the lesson the reader can take away? So what's the thing, what's the activity the character is doing, and what's the point of it? What would it show? If you had to explain this story to a 5-year-old, this is how they taught it in grad school. If you were to explain the story to a 5-year-old, yeah, you'd have to, simplify the language down or eliminate some of the more adult themes. But if you had to explain the story to a 5-year-old and they was like, well, and they asked you, well, what was the point? How would you explain and justify the point of your story? Somebody tried to do the right thing against really tough bullies. You don't let somebody speak for you if you can speak for yourself. Something like that. Those are all themes. Being able to identify that theme is fundamental to pulling your story together and having it be something more than just a list of this character did this, and then that character said that, and then this happened in the story, and then that happened in the story. It creates depth because it helps cement way back in that, that part where we talked about character building. It cements that relationship between character and reader. And it cements the relationship between world and reader because it's an additional layer of relationship building. That's why theme is so important. What's the next theme thing? You need to identify at least 2 times in the story. Honestly, at least 3. At least 3 times in the story where this theme shows up. One of those times, ideally, is where the theme is potentially introduced. Like if the idea is, let's use the don't let somebody speak for you if you can speak for yourself. So we need to have at least one instance where we see this being introduced, where we clearly see, let's say, the antagonist speaking for somebody when they should be speaking for themselves. So we need to introduce the thing. That's 1. 2, we need to show it possibly continuing as is or demonstrate that it's in flux. So maybe it happens later on in the story where the antagonist speaks for the other character, but we clearly see the spoken for character bristle a little. It's different. They're no longer just sitting there taking it. Now they're starting to chafe because of whatever else is going on in the story. And third, we need to see some condition where it's overcome, where all of a sudden the character who's previously been spoken for suddenly stands up and goes, many total? 1 conclusion, but you can have any number of times you develop it. Can you have more than 1 theme? Yes. If this is your first book, should you? Not really. Maybe 2. Don't go crazy. Don't push yourself too hard. It's totally okay to have only 1 or 2 themes. It's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean you're a bad writer. We're just starting. Also, this is a first draft, remember? We're just trying to get the ideas on the page and kind of organize our thoughts as we go. Don't freak out if we're a little skimpy in this section and other things like character or plot are way more detailed. That's fine. You got to be careful with that, though. You don't want to write the same scene over and over. That's true. You don't want to repeat the same thing in the same way over and over. So if we constantly have characters in circumstance X repeating the same behaviors over and over, we don't necessarily want to do it the same way, but we can still have the same idea, but in different locations, at different times, for different reasons. You can vary those things without direct repetition. But yeah, you do want to be prudent with it. Don't feel like if you get into high double digits, you've probably gone too far. Most of the time, you can get away in single digits. Even if your theme is the most like complex pie sky thing, single digits is fine. Again, it's also dependent on the flow of your story. You don't have to suddenly introduce other character elements or brand new locations or brand new characters just to reintroduce or perpetuate the theme development. Just tell the story as is. It's fine. One of the red flags here, we'll talk about red flags in a second, but one of them pertains to that, I'm making air quotes, solution. Last point I want to make about theme. It's really okay if they're simple. It's genuinely okay if they're simple. In fact, it's probably to your benefit that they're simple. because you want your reader to be able to walk away and say your story is an example of something, and you want them to have a very clear idea of what that something is. Standing up to bullies, speaking for yourself, doing the right thing in hard circumstances. You need it to be clear. So simplicity is okay. I understand that we can all point to movies and TV shows and series and stuff where the themes are very buried or very layered or very nuanced. And that's fine. But please don't feel like you have to start from the jump to get there. This is only the first draft. More tea, and then we're going to cover some red flags for all 4 of these things. I've just got a whole list. Are there any questions so far? I appreciate all of you who have stuck around. I appreciate people in chat, Troy, Rob, etc. Thank you for being here. If you have questions, I'm going to pour more tea in my face, and then we'll do red flags. All right. On to red flags. On to red flags. Let's do the one I was just about to talk about. You don't want to get in the habit of solving a story problem by creating another character. I don't care if it's a plot problem. I don't care if it's a theme problem. I don't care if it's a character development problem. Adding extra characters, especially later in stories, is not going to help you solve the problem. One more sidekick is not going to help. 10 more bad guys is not going to help. Work with what you have. Develop what you have better before you immediately jump to, well, I think I need to add a guy. This is especially true for secondary characters, where if you're telling a big, giant story that spans, like a whole kingdom with all this stuff, yeah, you're going to have a lot of people. Performance of story and the doing of stuff, you're going to want to work with what you have. Likewise, if your story is more intimate and your scale small, let's say you're writing a heteronormative romance novel, and you have a main character and a love interest, you don't want to have to add extra love interests to keep the story exciting. Because what you're doing is diffusing reader focus, which makes it hard to relate, which means they're not likely to follow the story. So don't get in the habit of solving things by adding characters. Related to this, don't get in the habit of solving character problems by adding backstory. I see this a lot with newer writers or writers who don't really push development a lot. So you'll get a character who's like super cool, like finger guns, pew, 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 level cool, right? And they will know literally everybody. Oh, I know somebody. I know somebody for that. I know somebody for that. Now, maybe it's because they are also like immortal or disgustingly, implausibly wealthy, or whatever their reason might be. Constantly showing your character as having multiple connections, exactly who to talk to, does not necessarily help repair a deficit or problem in that character's development. It's just something extra. It's sort of like saying, oh, you have many t-shirts in your closet. It doesn't speak, you have stuff. Backstory is great up to a point. Too much backstory and referencing too much backstory is like constantly driving and then tapping the brakes like every 5 to 10 seconds. The story lurches and you never really feel like you're getting up to speed when you're slowing down. You're speeding up and slowing down, and you're kind of bobbing back and forth over and over and over. You can't solve every problem with backstory. You can't hand wave away, oh, I know exactly what to do because, 300 years ago, I was in exactly the same situation. That the Highlander TV show where we always seem to have a related flashback to some prior event, but that's because that's the way the show is framed. It's entirely different when we have a novel where the character is supposed to be challenged by something. We can't necessarily always have a way. Don't undercut your challenges by adding more characters. Here is a world building red flag. You have a responsibility as a writer to put a picture in the reader's head. If you don't describe a thing well, because you use broad, vague language that you know what you mean, sometimes that's okay, but by and large, when it becomes consistently a problem and the reader doesn't know what to picture in their head, it can be hard to follow a story, no matter how interesting the dialogue might be or how cool the premise might be. To show us something new or help expand our awareness or knowledge of something we've already been shown. We're going to focus in on things. We're going to move past things. We're going to zoom in, zoom out, come from above, crane in, truck in through a window. Follow the character as they go from here to there. Whatever it might be. Every sentence is a camera. What is this sentence pointing at? And what is this sentence putting in the reader's head? This falls under world building because usually what presents as a problem, especially in a completed first draft, is the idea of, well, you know what you meant. And when we get to the specific part, like, well, we're inside the corporate office, and once we get into the conference room, then we just have the dialogue and we move the story forward. And that's fine, but talk to me about the conference room. The chairs, the table, the size of the room. I understand what you mean when you say conference room, but give me something more than that. Do you mean a conference room like at that shitty airport Hilton I was in once in Charlotte? Or the conference room that was really a converted bedroom in the third floor of a junkie hotel? What are you trying to paint? What set should I picture? What stuff should I see in my brain when the reader reads the stuff? Let's do one more. Let's do a plot red flag. Don't rob the character and therefore the reader of the satisfaction of completion because you have lofty ideas about a series. I understand that you want to write a series. I understand that you want to publish a series. I understand that you have a big, giant arc planned for this character with big, giant stuff. I understand. But series are written and published one book at a time. And they're marketed one book at a time. And you are contracted one book at a time. And if you're traditionally publishing, your series is sales dependent. If your first book doesn't sell well enough, whatever well enough the publisher decides, if your book doesn't sell well enough, they're not going to authorize you to do books 2 and 3. And you're going to have to wait till the rights revert back to you, and then you're going to try and produce it yourself or shop it elsewhere. But generally, that's going to take some time. So just focus on just this book. Don't lose sight of just this book. If you want to leave the door open, it doesn't need to be this particularly ham-handed thing like, at the end, the last 2 pages, we walk back past the room where we defeated the bad guy, but the bad guy's body is gone. It doesn't need to be so overt. It doesn't need to be this epilogue where, the monster rises from the swamp one more time. You can just leave it so that you have the option for telling another adventure with the hero. This is wrapped up, but at the end of the day, they finally get their day off. They crane kick the blonde kid, they win the trophy, the really hot girl gives him a hug, the little Asian janitor man knocks his head at him, and we go to credits. And who knows what happens after that, but there's a possibility that something will. Just write this book. Just write this book. This is just your first draft. So what I've walked through for the last hour and 55 minutes or so is the problem with NaNoWriMo. I have challenged it at its foundation. I have done my best to counter its case against me, other than the fact that people don't like me because I'm abrasive and I swear and I'm a dude. And I have laid out an alternative system for you to do writing plus prep. And when it comes to prep, it's prep in these specific areas. Again, this is just to facilitate the production of a first draft, because the goal of a first draft is to be completed. Because it's from that first draft that we extrapolate and move forward into a second draft. But the second draft works from the bones laid out in the first draft. And then we polish and refine into a third draft and so on. And then we can move further down the publishing steps. And no way, shape, or form are you ever expected to have all this done within 30 days. It takes as long as it takes. And you should, and you can, and I would even argue you must, ask for help when you need it. Because the truth of the hashtag writing community is that they don't want you writing. They just want you to talk with each other and take up space. But the real community of writers is in shared production, shared camaraderie, shared assistance. Not competition. Not trying to step over somebody else to win. Just the straight up, I'm trying to do this, have my back, and I have yours. We're in this together because we're all making art. Because the amount of customers we cater to is pretty goddamn big, and it's not like somebody will buy my book and completely ignore yours because they've somehow met their book buying quota. That's never happened. Just take this chance to make the first draft the best it can be. Not perfect, but get all the ideas out. Get it all on the page so that we can start shaping and polishing and refining, moving forward through the second draft. And you're going to be at the second draft process for a long time, and that's completely okay. Just start there. You don't need a calendar. You don't need a word count per day. You need 3 things: motivation, education, opportunity. Motivation you can get from writers who you know are going through this, not legit experts, people with experience. Whether that's actual educational experience or whether that's people who can generally speak to things, whether that's streams or conferences or coaches or editors or people answering like legit Q&A and they're not just talking to talk. Experts are out there. Education is available. Opportunity, though, that's on you. That's your ability to make the decisions to say, I am taking control of this amount of time, and I am going to use it this particular way. I leave that to you because it is not for someone else to dictate those terms to you. Like, write 1,667 words every day for 30 days. You know your schedule best. You know your energy level best. You know your time best. Wield it effectively while balancing as best you can. And sometimes this thing needs to sit down so that you can prioritize other things like, oh my God, I have to pay the mortgage, so I better put my focus over here for a minute. The story's not going anywhere because I've left myself a breadcrumb trail in this writing prep space, so that's fine. But the opportunity is yours. I can only hope that you take a shot at it because I believe in you. And you're good enough to succeed. Like it says on the screen, you're always good enough. You just got to try. And that is everything I have for you tonight. That's it. 2 hours. Pretty much on the nose. I'm quite pleased. Any questions? Any issues? Anything? I'm going to keep drinking tea. If you're in chat, if this was, you dug this was good, let me know. Yes, no, we're cool. All right. I continue to not have an outro for Monday nights. All right. Anyway, thank you for coming and checking this out. I genuinely appreciate it. Thank you for being here. Thanks for taking a 2-hour tour through story with me. I hope you like this. If you did, if this is the first time you're checking this out, please feel free to follow on Twitch. It's free. If you're watching this out on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe. It helps. It helps incredibly. It doesn't directly put money in my pocket the way a Twitch sub does, but it certainly allows more people to see this stuff, which increases the likelihood of more people doing things and creating things and putting out more art, and that's really all I'm after. If you need help, let's end on this note. If you need help with anything here we've talked about tonight, if you need one-on-one help for accountability, for an overview, for a re-explanation, for a whatever, honestly, sincerely, come talk to me. I am happy to. You can book an appointment, jump on the website, writernextdoor.com, click on book an appointment at the top, and I am happy to talk to you in whatever amount of time about whatever it is you need. It's all nice and neatly organized there. You can make do with it. I should point out, yes, there are free appointments. If you need to book something and you just want to talk, click that button, book an appointment. It's free. Take advantage of it. I'm here to help you. This wasn't hopefully just me dunking on NaNoWriMo for 2 hours, because I got plenty of things I can dunk on. I'm a cranky old man. But hopefully I've helped lay the groundwork so that you can be successful. That's all I want. I want you to think, and I want you to go forward and do the best you can, making the best art you can. The next time I'm talking to you, the next time I'm here, just pull up my calendar, is in 2 days on November the 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern. I will be right here one more time on Twitch and YouTube for the Writer's Chat. If you want to support stuff like this, streams on Mondays, the Writer's Chat, the podcast that's very quickly forthcoming. If you want to find out everything that's next, including merch, I should point out that there is merch. The best thing you can do is jump on the Patreon, patreon.com/John, John, helps you create. That's JohnHelpsYouCreate. John helps you create. And for all kinds of news and good stuff, the best thing you can do is follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/awesome, AWESOME _JOHN, awesome _John. So I will see you in 2 days, Wednesday, the 3rd at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you then. Thank you for being here. I love you. Take care of yourself. Get some water. Relax. Thanks for being here. We'll talk soon. See ya.